We had just kind of daily meltdowns, sometimes multiple meltdowns lasting an hour or longer at times, and just kind of felt like everybody was walking on eggshells all the time.
So tell us a little bit about what things feel like now.
I feel like we have our family back. The air feels lighter. It just feels like a home now.
Okay. Well, Nick and Kelsey, thank you so much for joining us here today. Can you tell us a little bit about your family? Just introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Kelsey. This is my husband, Nick.
Hey.
We have a 4-year-old, soon to be 5-year-old in a couple of months, a son, and then our daughter is almost 2. She turns 2 in a few weeks.
Awesome. And tell us a little bit about what life was like for your family before you found me and joined the Chaos to Connection coaching program.
I would say life was chaotic. Our oldest son is our highly sensitive one, and he was great and chill and fun to be around until all of a sudden he wasn't anymore. And it just, as he was growing up, he started having bigger and bigger emotions, and we didn't know how to help him through those emotions. And it just kind of spiraled out of control until we had just kind of daily meltdowns, sometimes multiple meltdowns lasting an hour or longer at times. And just kind of felt like everybody was walking on eggshells all the time, not knowing what we were going to do or say that would trigger another meltdown at any moment.
I think where Nick was going with that is that our son used to be really silly and just good natured and creative and exploratory, enthusiastic. And when he turned about 3.5, things just got more complicated for him, I think. And we just started to see more and more of that, like more and more anger and just sort of, I don't know, confusion on all of our ends on how to proceed forward with our family. Like we kind of got to a place where we felt like we were making things worse and we didn't know how to support him. And we just sort of clammed up and broke down. And it just was a really helpless place to be in. And also just scary. And like we kind of missed a silly little guy that we had. And we just wanted to figure out a way to where we could all be our most like genuine selves at home again.
I love that. It's so funny you say that because I feel like that's something that I talk about a lot is like being your authentic self. But I love that that was one of the goals is just to be able to be yourself at home and see your kid like his true self and not this really dysregulated version of him.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't feel like we could say or do anything with him anymore without him yelling at us or getting upset. We couldn't joke around with him anymore. We didn't feel comfortable saying no. We knew we weren't doing the right things. And we just kind of felt like we were being controlled by his emotions. And we needed a way out of that.
Yeah, that's what parents mean, I think, when they say, I feel like my child's emotions are holding us hostage. Like we can't do the things we want to do. And I remember you guys saying you weren't even feeling comfortable to go on a work trip or leave home. Like both of you needed to be there. And that's a hard place to be.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely got to a point where there's like a day where there's before that day and then there's after that day. And that day for us was a wake-up call because after that, we really weren't able to leave each other alone with both kids. And I did have to cancel work trips and really prioritize my family. And at that point, we really were like, our hands were tied. We needed to figure out a solution on how to parent our child. What we were doing was not working anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And you found yourself in a pattern that just you knew was not sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what emotions came with jumping into Chaos to Connection? And I know you guys actually knew someone who had done the program. So that's a little different than some parents who come in and they don't really know what to expect. But I think there were still a lot of emotions that came with that jump.
Yeah, I think Kelsey just wanted to do it right away. And I think I was more hesitant. We cast a pretty wide net. We had explored all sorts of different types of therapies and behavioral things. And, we were even talking to a psychiatrist. We had a meeting with a psychiatrist at one point to figure out what's going on here. And
Chiropractor.
Yeah, it sort of felt like we had all these options lined out in front of us. And it sort of felt like, well, which one is going to give us there's a lot of different factors from insurance, and like some things are covered, some things are not covered by insurance. And it just sort of felt like a point where I was like, which one of these is going to work and which one is going to be best? And so I think there was some hesitation, maybe just from being overwhelmed by the options and the at-home environment as well. So I think it was an easier decision for Kelsey. It was a little harder for me, but I don't know. I'm really glad that we didn't do any of the other options.
Yeah. I just remember having the first phone call with you and just feeling like immediate relief wash over me, because even though we hadn't accepted the program yet, I felt like there was finally it felt right, and it really resonated with us, and it felt like we were finally going to have a plan and someone to walk us through it. And it wasn't going to be like this once a week thing. It's a full, complete support system and plan to help not only our son, but also help us figure out how and why we're parenting the way we are, and how we can make improvements, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think all the other options were, it sort of felt like we would take our son to an appointment. It would last an hour once a week. We would sit in a lobby or be more disconnected from him while somebody else, quote, fixes him or trains behaviors out of him. And that just sort of, I don't know, it didn't resonate with us, and it didn't feel right. It felt like saying like something's wrong with our kid.
Yeah.
Even though I think deep down we knew that there wasn't necessarily something wrong with him, just that our environment that we were putting him in wasn't right. Or
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really kind of hard to express that. It sounds like all the other options are like, how can we teach children how to behave well? But what does that even mean?
Right. So it sounds like, Nick, you knew there was a piece of this that needed to be support for you guys. And that's sort of the piece that was missing from these other options.
Yeah, I think so for sure.
Yeah. Was there one thing that kind of got you over that hump of like, okay, we need to do this?
I mean, I think honestly, so we had the benefit of knowing someone who did the program. So we were able to have some comfort in understanding how well it worked for them.
Yeah.
And that gave us a lot of confidence. But the other thing that I liked was that I would say it's fully immersive, and it's very, I would say, intense for a shorter period of time than the other options. The other options are like years of appointments. This is like 8 weeks of intense transformation.
Yeah.
That felt good, knowing that we could kind of attack it more quickly and make changes in our home and the environment that we're creating almost immediately, really.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely nervous. We have 2 kids in daycare, so money is not flowing freely, at the moment. And so it's a big investment. And I was afraid that it wasn't going to work for our family or our child. There's always that fear, and part of the program is kind of overcoming your own anxieties. But to me, it was rationalized it as it's a lifetime investment. We're going to see the benefits for our family immediately, and then that's going to carry through how we interact and support each other throughout the rest of our life.
Yeah.
So that to me was the key thing there, is this is a decision for our life and our livelihood, honestly, at that point.
Yeah. I love that you said it that way, because that really is what this is, because it's not just, okay, we end the behaviors, right? And we get to the point where the meltdowns aren't happening. But it's bigger than that. Nick, you said earlier, you're like, those other options would leave us kind of disconnected from our kid. The whole idea of chaos to connection, why I came up with that name is because that's really the process. It's not like, a lot of people say chaos to calm, but it's not always calm ever in a family. There's gonna be hard moments no matter who your kid is, whether they're a sensitive, deeply feeling kid or not. I think it's chaos to connection. That's where we really want to be, is in that place where we're really connected to each other, and we know we can all have our feelings, we can all get our needs met, we can all show up as our genuine selves. So I love that you said it that way, because it really is an investment that kind of continues, and not just in this generation, but how your kiddo is going to show up to parenting when someday, if they choose to become parents, right? So I think it is really, but it's hard sometimes when you're in the mess of that struggle to see that. So I think it's really cool that you were able to really see that investment.
Yeah, and it's definitely nice looking back on it now when I think about that period before we joined the program. It's like very obvious to me that we were lacking that connection with him and we had grown apart. And we knew that on some level. It was just amazing to see how instant things changed when we started making connection the focus.
Yep, absolutely. And I think the other piece of it is that there's a lot of parenting advice out there that tells you to connect with your kid, but there's also this other piece of it of like the actual strategic knowing how to show up in the hard moments. And you have to have both, but without the connection, none of the rest of it works. That is so foundational. So tell us a little bit about what things feel like now that you've done the 8-week program. You guys fully immersed yourselves. You did the work. Where are things now?
I feel like we have our family back. We're like having fun together again, and we're going on adventures, and sometimes we're doing some solo things, and I have work trips planned, and his relationships with his teachers and his friends at school have greatly improved, and he's looking forward to school where he used to fight us on it tooth and nail every day. And so he's made just like great strides, and we feel like we can be ourselves around him again. The air feels lighter. Like it just feels like a home now. And yeah, I would have never thought that was possible before doing this program.
Yeah, I mean, to go back a couple questions about the timeline, I think was very attractive because our son is starting public school in, I don't know, 2 or 3, 4 weeks, something like that. And so we felt like this option, like working with you, would help us improve things before he went to public school and also help with that transition, which is incredibly hard. And I couldn't imagine trying to help him through that transition without having the foundation that we did in the 8 weeks of this course. But also from our home life, we've noticed that his relationship with his sister is slowly getting better. He's, more patient with her. She's not even 2 yet, so she doesn't understand boundaries and toys and who's playing with something.
Now.
Yeah, he invites her to play.
Yeah.
He invites her into his room. He gives her hugs occasionally. And if she starts crying or falls down, he brings her something to comfort her. And, we didn't see any of that before the program. It was hostility, which, siblings have their moments, of course. There's no way to avoid that. But it seemed like before the course, it was just all clashes and no empathy towards each other at all. But I think that one's a little bit of a slower burn to incorporate into his sort of interactions with people, but that's been really nice to see. And it's even since finishing the program, we've seen a lot more of that as well.
Yeah, it's really cute.
I love that. Yay. Because, to your point, Nick, like, yes, siblings are going to have their moments, but you're seeing this side of him, this caring, sweet, nurturing side of him that is building a relationship with her intentionally. And that's something you just didn't see before.
And he's always been very kind and very sweet until he reached that certain age. And then it was like he grew away from that. And now I can look back on it and see that he was really struggling. And that's who he always is and always has been.
Yep.
But he needed support to be his most authentic self again.
Yes. It's like you have your actual kid back.
Yeah.
He's always been this sweet boy, but he couldn't be that sweet boy with all that dysregulation.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we can talk to him. We actually know how to talk to him now, which is great. Like he finished my sentence for me the other day when I was starting to get frustrated. And I was like, I'm just feeling really. And he was like, frustrated? It's like, yeah, that's so, just little moments like that are just such huge wins and just baby steps to,
Yeah. And he's also been sharing his emotions with us more often. I would say before the program, we started talking to him about how in the fall, he's going to change schools and he's going to go to school with like kindergartners and 5th graders. And looking back, maybe we tried to just only put excitement into him, try to get him excited and pump him up about it. But more recently, he's shared actual feelings about that transition feelings of excitement, fear, nervousness, and he's been able to express those to us more openly, which is really nice to be able to not have to guess what somebody's feeling, but actually have your kid tell you exactly what they're feeling. And that allows you to help them so much easier.
And he can say it without shame. He understands the different emotional states and has that awareness now. These are all skills that you have intentionally built, both of you, by doing the work with him.
Yeah.
So cool to see. So what would you tell a parent who's thinking about this program, who's maybe on the fence? Maybe they don't know someone who's done the program and they're like, is this going to work for me?
My advice would be to do it because it's definitely been transformational, I would say, for us. And that's kind of the same thing that the people that we knew who had done it told us, is that it was immediately transformational, immediately being in the context of 8 weeks. But I do think that it's not something that you can do halfway or lightly. I think going into it, I didn't exactly realize how much of a every waking moment commitment it was. For those, I would say probably for the first like 4 or 5 weeks, we were just exhausted from just the brain power of trying to change our mindsets and react differently and teach skills and connect and also watch videos every night. But it was so worth it.
Exercising.
Yeah. Well, looking back on it, it's kind of one of those things. It's like, it's almost like a boot camp or something. It's very intense for a relatively short period of time.
Yep.
And if you commit to it and dive into it, you get so many benefits out of it.
Yeah. And I would say, like, if you're looking for a more holistic way to look at your family and your house and how you interact and communicate with your kids, this is a good program for that. I remember when I was first taught to the person that we knew, I remember just being like, yeah, but what did you do? Give me some details here. Like, what exactly did you change? And like, because you're so used to all these other things out there that have everything, like there's a million different providers that do a very similar regulated thing. And so you know what to expect. But I also think like it was good not really knowing fully what to expect, because there isn't one tangible thing. It's a culmination of little things. And that was like the biggest surprise for me, was that even though we did make big changes, we made a lot of little, small, intentional changes that I wasn't expecting to see results so quickly or so drastically, but we did. And that was, to me, like the most surprising part, I think, of doing the program. And so, it's going to be different for every family. So I can't say, exactly which part of the program will, be the most transformative or whatever for a person. But I would just say that it's good because having you there to support us through everything, like we made a lot of hard decisions to change parts of our family that I don't think we would have felt comfortable making without like that push from you.
Yes.
And your support and like walking us through what to do and then troubleshooting, when things went awry or whatever.
I hear that a lot, actually, that parents will do things like, we stopped laying in bed with our kid until they fell asleep. And that was something we'd wanted to stop for years, but we didn't know how. Or, you guys moved a bedroom, right?
Yeah.
Or,
yeah.
Like, big changes that felt impossible. But when you have that support and the framework, it's actually doable. And so that's where it's hard to say, like, we can cover so much ground in this program. There's the parts that are in the program, but then there's so much beyond that we can cover: eating habits and how family dinners go, and like all of these things that may not apply to every family. Sibling relationships, right? Not every family has multiple kids, but there's so much that we cover that's specific to each family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think what caught me off guard is, like, we decided to do the program, we jumped in, and then we sit down to watch the first video, and it's the whole first module is all about me. It's like, what? We did this program to fix our kids. There's nothing wrong with me, right? Like, but I think just doing that first module that was so introspective just massively changed everything, I think. And we didn't even address anything about our kids or their behavior. And I think that's when I realized, like, wow, this is, and I was like going ahead, looking at the titles of all the videos, like, okay, I can't wait till we get to this part. But it was just kind of immediate. And I was not prepared for how much inward looking we would have to do just because it's hard to, if you're not like psychology or any of these sorts of fields, it's hard to understand what you have going on in your past comes out in certain ways, and that just affects the whole environment of the house.
Yep.
So that really caught me off guard, but I think that was probably one of the best parts of the program, really.
I love that so much. And it's funny because that's the part people will resist the most, right? It's like, I don't know if I want to do all this, or I don't know if I need all this. I just give me the practical strategies.
Yeah.
And those are all there, right? But we don't do that right away. And there's a reason for that. And I think in the beginning that can feel like a lot. But then when you really take in those shifts, you just the whole lens through which you see your kid and your family just shifts and everything feels different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember one of our early conversations, I was just be saying how much work it felt like. I was like, gosh, this just feels like I have to do so much. And I remember you being like, well, who else is going to do it?
Yeah.
Like, you're the parents, and that jarred me. And I was like, oh, you're right. Like, this is on me. And everything that we've changed has been on us. And we've seen the results through our children. But that was an important wake up call for sure.
I remember that conversation. And I have that same conversation with a lot of parents because it's like,
I'm sure.
This is a lot of work for us. And I want my kid to stop melting down. And it's like, we'll get there. We'll get there. But first, I actually just put a post on Instagram saying something like that, where I was essentially saying, you've already tried to change your kid. And there's all these strategies that'll say, just immediately give them a timeout or just do this every time they melt down. And it's like, none of that stuff works. And if it did, I would not have a job. You know what I mean? It would be so much easier just to put it in an Instagram caption and there you go. But this stuff is deeper work.
Yeah. We need the magic pill.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, thank you both so much for sharing your experience. You both came into this program and I know things felt really hard when you started. And I know you were like on top of all of that. Now we got to do all this work. This basically, like you said, like a boot camp. But you did. You showed up, you did the work. And I think from my experience of it, things started to feel lighter for y'all pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And then that's where it becomes possible to then do the other pieces of it. So it never gets old watching these journeys because you all are just so inspiring. And truly, I believe your family's going to reap the benefits of this shift for generations to come. So you're really doing important work. And I know it continues, right? You're still parenting. So you're doing amazing. And it's just been such an honor to support both of you.
Yeah, no, we appreciate everything. And like you said, we're continuously working on it. There are, the meltdowns, they don't stop. But I think I told Nick this the other night, like when I go to bed every night, I feel like I can say, whoa, that was a hard day, but I'm happy with how I showed up and the things that I said and how I supported my kids through it. I feel good about it, even when it's a hard day. So
that's the thing. And I actually had somebody message me, a previous program participant recently, and she said, my daughter had a big meltdown and I was actually excited because it was an opportunity to teach emotion regulation and connect with her. And I was like, yes, this is what I try to tell people. And everybody looks at me like I have three heads, but that's where you get to that point. So, well, thank you again, both for being here and for trusting me in this process. It's just been amazing to see you both shine through this process.
Yeah, we appreciate everything.
Thank you.
It's been our pleasure.